Miyazaki Hayao's work can be defined as a collision, the melding of many elements and pieces into a unique whole. He masterfully weaves opposing forces together in a fashion that creates a shockingly natural outcome. He uses the grand next to the simple, creates the destruction of beauty and shows the beauty in destruction, combines good and evil, computer-generated and handcrafted. The endless wonders of a child's fantasy are mixed with the consequences of an adult reality. Miyazaki's work is not that of purging the world of its faults, but rather that of recognizing the wholeness of the world with them present. Can good exist without evil? And can a good person truly exist without fault?
作品であっても、今までこうだったから、あるいはこうだから、こういう悪役が出てきてこれやっつければいいんだとかっていうふうに簡単に作ってはいけないっていうふうに思っています。
As he puts it, worlds are created through fragments and chaos. Miyazaki animations contain an honest portrayal of life superimposed in a world of complete fiction. He creates reality through pictures. He is the master of contradictions, as life itself is a contradiction. In order to understand the genius of such a man, one must first examine his roots. Miyazaki, like most artists, draws from his personal experience in order to create. Often the most profound work spurs from moments that truly impacted the artist, allowing the viewers to connect with the art themselves. Miyazaki was born in January of 1941 in the town of Akembo-no-cho in Bukyo-ho district of Tokyo. His mother was known to have a fiery personality and is largely the base for many of his female characters. She spent 2 years in the hospital, and during that time Miyazaki became responsible for many of the household chores. He is still known for cooking for his colleagues while working in the studio. While his mother's spirited and energetic personality was the base for many of his strong female characters, the most obvious connection his mother has with his work can be seen in the film My Neighbor Totoro.
Mommy!
Hi, May. It's so good to see you.
Daddy kept getting lost the whole way here, Mom.
He did.
His father, Miyazaki Katsuji, had an equal amount of influence. He was the director of Miyazaki Airplane that manufactured rudders for fighter planes during World War II. It's no secret that the animator is fascinated with aviation, as it is featured in many of his films.
Mr. Caproni, may I ask you a question? I know I can't be a pilot because of my eyesight. If I'm not a pilot, can I still design airplanes?
Japanese boy. I've been around planes all my life. You know how many I've flown? None! Not a one! Many can fly airplanes, but I design them. I create airplanes, and so can you. An aeronautical engineer!
Yes!
But remember this, Japanese boy. Airplanes are not tools for war. They're not for making money. Airplanes are beautiful dreams. Engineers turn dreams into reality.
Yes. Arrivederci! We'll meet again!
Miyazaki's experiences in World War II and during the Reconstruction period undoubtedly had the most profound influence on his work. During the war, his family was evacuated to Utsunomiya. The town was bombed during the course of the conflict, resulting in 628 casualties. Witnessing such traumatic events at such a young age left a lasting impression. Themes of anti-war and, by association, anti-industry run throughout his films. The loss of nature at the hands of such destructive forces is also perpetuated. However, in a typical Miyazaki fashion, his portrayal of such events is never cut and dry. The dynamic character, Lady Eboshi from Princess Mononoke, seems to be driven by uncaring and destructive greed that has angered the forest deities. She is the antagonist of the film, however, she is not an all-consuming evil character. She knows kindness to her employees and protects their livelihood. She ensures that the women of Irontown are treated fairly, and that the leprous outcasts are provided for. His most recent film, The Wind Rises, reflects his experiences even more so. The film is based on the true story of Horikoshi Jiro, whom aspires to be an aeronautical engineer. His story correlates highly with Miyazaki's interest with the effects of war, not only on a global scale, but to the people living under those conditions. Jiro's true interest lied within the beauty of innovation that an aircraft represented, but those dreams were twisted and morphed in the pursuit of war.
と同時にその夢は戦争が終わることによって42歳の時に次郎は設計者としての生命を絶たれます。
Miyazaki's childhood revolved around the budding manga industry in post-war Japan. Miyazaki originally envisioned himself as a mangaka, or manga writer. It is important to note that the Western perceptions of comic books does not translate to the Japan's impressions of manga. Animation in comic books by Western thinking is regarded as children's entertainment. To the majority of the West, the value of animation is only regarded as escapist. Japan views animation as art, and it receives all of the academic scrutiny that typically accompanies it. The content also reflects this notion, as even children's manga or anime contains adult themes. Miyazaki first developed an interest in the world of animated films in 1958, with the film Hakujaden, Japan's first colored feature-length film. As a college student, Miyazaki received his bachelor's in economics and political science from Gakushin University in 1963. While attending school, he was an active member of the Children's Literature Club, from which he derived much inspiration later in his career. On the same year of his graduation, Miyazaki was employed by Toei Animation as an animator. It was there that he was first practically trained in the art of animating. He learned the basics of production and performed as an in-betweener, subject organizer, key animator, scene designer, and storyboard artist. Ukami Shonen Ken, an anime TV series, was his first work of animation, where he was credited as being an in-between artist. Here he met his long-life partner, Takahata Isao. The pair worked on the film Prince of the Sun, where Takahata directed and Miyazaki in the part designed the scenes and created the key animations. The first film revealed Miyazaki's talents and the company's lack of initiative. Toei did not share Miyazaki's vision of what an animated narrative should include, so he left the company with his partner. He found himself at Nippon Animation, where he took a substantial role in producing World Masterpiece Theater. His time at Nippon allowed him to travel to Europe and experience the beauty of the landscape firsthand, an invaluable experience for the young animator. 5 years later, Hayao Miyazaki had moved again. Toho Studios allowed him to direct his first feature film, Lupin III: The Castle of Cagliostro, a successful film that played a major role in future founding of Studio Ghibli. Although Miyazaki's career was never that of a mangaka, he never truly left the notion behind. The Ghibli flagship film, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, was based on a manga that Miyazaki wrote in his spare time. He was also heavily inspired by artists like Fukushima Tetsuki, Yamakawa Soji, and Tezuka Osamu. They drew in the Gekija style, which roughly translates to dramatic picture. The style strives to create both realistic drawings while dramatizing the emotional aspects of the image. The result is dark and powerful illustrations that evoke meaning behind every detail. Gekija is a style that Miyazaki both embraced and modifies for his films. While employing the Gekija style, Miyazaki's filming techniques were learned from his mentor Otsuka Yasuo. He focused on shot composition and background aesthetic, namely not only showing the world through its visuals, but continuing the narrative through its detailed backgrounds. A concept like this is not rare, but it shows heavily in his earlier works, such as Doggy March and The Great Adventure of Horace, Prince of the Sun. Setting up these shots of animation are what Miyazaki does best, displaying an overall sense of the world, certain details, and then coming back to the focal point. Now, aside from specific pacing moments, what does all this do for the audience? Well, moments of action and progression of the story can blend seamlessly. Take, for instance, this clip of Castle in the Sky, where Pazu and Shita are being chased by Dola and her band of pirates. From the moment they evade the first parrot, they run to Pazu's town, escape through the back of the house, get spotted by Dola making a break for it on the train tracks, and the chase begins. Miyazaki has a track record for constructing certain plot pathways in his films, which allows the pacing to remain fluid. He accentuates it through Gekija, creating breathtaking visual narratives that can be easily followed and intriguing to the viewer. In 1985, Studio Ghibli was officially founded in order to create the film Laputa Castle in the Sky. However, the company's roots go back 2 years earlier, when Takuma Shoten, who worked for Anime Age Publishing Company, decided to go produce a film version of Nausicaa Valley of the Wind manga. Partially due to Miyazaki's success in Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, and the promising plot of the manga-based film was given the green light. Nausicaa's success established a concrete foundation for the new studio and allowed Miyazaki's career to truly take off. Undoubtedly, Hayao Miyazaki's most recognized and praised film is Spirited Away. The film won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2003, the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Animated Feature in 2003, and the Japan Academy Prize for Picture of the Year for 2002. The film exemplifies Miyazaki's work as a whole, containing elements and themes that span across his career. Themes that range from coming of age to the pursuit of a personal identity, consumption, corruption, greed, and nature. The idea for Spirited Away came from spending his vacations in mountains with his family and family friends. The cabin was frequented by 5 little girls around the age of 10 that were a part of the families that stayed there. Due to his experience with them, Miyazaki wished to make a film that was specifically geared towards 10-year-olds, who are on the cusp of reaching adolescence. In searching for another source of inspiration, he tried to read shoujo manga magazines. But he felt that the subject of this medium was too heavily based on crushes and romance, instead of topics that were actually relevant to little girls. He wanted to represent what they held dear in their hearts, so he sought to make a film with a heroine that these girls could actually look up to. The film's central character is Ojino Chihiro. In the opening sequence, Chihiro and her parents stumble upon an abandoned amusement park where her parents end up turning into pigs after gluttonously eating the amusement park food. After meeting Haku, the spirit explains to her where she is and instructs her on what she must do to survive in this realm. Chihiro asks for a job in the bathhouse, where she symbolically loses her name and her previous identity. Spirited Away's setting occurs in multiple layers of liminal space. From the beginning, where she's traveling from her old house to her new one, from a bathhouse that bridges Chihiro's world with the spiritual, transitional spaces like elevators, bridges, staircases, and tunnels, cars and trains. These spaces symbolize Chihiro's progression from one point of her life to the next. In order for one to grow, one must experience a period of liminality, where one temporarily lacks an identity. Chihiro progresses from having a whiny, bratty, and weak personality to that courageous and strong individual. The supporting characters of Spirited Away also discuss typical Hayao Miyazaki topics. Haku, who has forgotten his true name, is the spirit of a river that was filled and so that apartment can be built. As a result, Haku has difficulties with his memory. Likewise, the stink spirit is representative of nature loss and the personal experience Miyazaki is incorporated into the film.
I cleaned a river once, my local river, and there really was a bicycle. It was stuck in there. 10 of us wrapped the rope around the bars and slowly pulled it out. We really cleaned up the river, and the fish are back. And that's why I added that scene.
The cost of development and growth also leads to the destruction of nature, and by nature, affecting the people as well. Miyazaki's film advocates finding balance between development and the preservation of nature. No Face also presents a different face of Miyazaki's typical themes. The character is introduced as a gentle, speechless creature that has no distinguishable personality traits besides for his helpfulness. In opposition to No Face, the owner and most of the workers of the bathhouse all share a greedy and corrupt nature. Yubaba steals people's names to keep them indebted to her, while also having a love of money and possessions. The workers also take on this sordid nature due to their need to survive in Yubaba's working conditions. As No Face enters the domain of the bathhouse, he begins to take on the identity of its greedy individuals. He literally consumes a worker and their identity, taking on their greedy and monstrous traits. He gains speech and a disjointed view on reality, that of a consumptive and greedy person who only seeks greed as a solution. It is Chihiro's rejection of this and his ultimate wish to please her that allows him to overcome his transformation. Only until he expels all the corruption he has taken on from the bathhouse and leaves it entirely does he return to his previous state. This can be seen as a comment on the consumer mentality that arose with urbanization and industrialization in the 20th century, where the consumption of products are attributed with having a meaning and identity. Along with the employment of many meaningful themes, Miyazaki also utilized many of his favorite techniques in creating Spirited Away. The Ma technique, or emptiness, is used as a resting period for the audience to gain their bearings. The scene occurs after a pivotal point in the plot that contains lots of action, making the moment of quiet feel even longer. The meandering train sequence is a visual treat for the audience, as it is the first time they are allowed to appreciate the art of Miyazaki's work without the quick pace of the plot intruding. Miyazaki's roots in Gekija and attention to detail truly comes to the forefront. The breather also allows the audience to observe Chihiro's growth as a character. The legacy of Spirited Away can be proven in its box office success internationally. It remained the highest grossing film for 14 years until recently, 2016, the movie Your Name surpassed it. Domestically, it remains the highest grossing animated film. The word Ghibli, or Ghibli, in Japanese refers to both the blazing Sahara wind and a model of a World War II Italian scouting airplane. As a man who is wholly rooted to his past while being focused on the future, the name is fitting. It combines a childhood love of aeronautics with an adult concern for the environment and its future. Miyazaki Hayao, like the work he creates, is an amalgamation of many elements. In the future, we have his newest film to look forward to, Boro the Caterpillar, starring a tiny hairy caterpillar that you could easily squish between your fingers.